Just wanted to, again, thank you for coming as we are going through the book of 1 John. So, again, we're going to continue our journey there, and we'll review a little bit if you missed last week to catch you up. So don't worry, just stay in there and we'll get you caught up. Linda was a young woman traveling along the rugged highway between Alberta to the Yukon to a place called Whitehorse. Linda didn't know you don't travel to Whitehorse alone in a rundown Honda Civic, but she set off anyways to go where a place only four-wheel drive vehicles go. The first evening, she found herself in a room in the mountains near the summit and asked for a 5 a.m. wake-up call so she could get up early and start. She couldn't understand why the clerk looked at her surprised at the request, but she woke up early morning at 5 a.m. to discover an early morning fog covering the mountaintops. Now she understood. Not wanting to look foolish, she got up and went to breakfast. 2 truckers invited Linda to join them, and since the place was so small, she felt obliged. They asked her, "Where are you heading?" "Whitehorse," she answered. One of them responded, "In that little Civic?" "No way. That pass is dangerous in weather like this." "Well, I'm determined to try," was Linda's response. The other trucker responded, "Then I guess we're going to have to hug you." Linda drew back in that awkward moment. "There's no way you're going to hug me." The trucker responded, "Not like that. We'll put one truck in front of you and one in the rear. And that way, you'll get through those mountains." All the foggy morning, Linda followed the 2 red dots in front of her and had the assurance that there was a big escort behind her. They made it safely through the mountains. I think that's what we talked about last week when we talked about fellowship in 1 John. God puts people in our lives in front of us and people in our lives behind us to hug us along our journey so we get there safely. And so I want to start tonight by reviewing the 4 main things that we talked about and the purpose of this letter. Again, 1 John is a letter. So I want you to think of, we always read it as a book of the Bible, and so we go chapter 1, chapter 2. Remember, it's a letter. There was no chapters in the letter. And it was written for a specific purpose to a group of people, and he wanted to help them. So recognize as we read through this 1 John, it's a letter written to help people. And so there are smaller issues in this letter, but we're going to point out just the 4 main purposes, and over the weeks to come, discuss each one of them. The first purpose, he and his readers might have fellowship with one another and with God by knowing God. The second purpose, that he and his readers may experience true joy. It's interesting that as a Christian, he's writing to Christians and telling them, I want you to experience true joy, which means we've all experienced joy, but maybe it's not true joy. I'm excited when we get into that in a couple weeks. He writes also in the third one that his readers may not sin. And I know this sounds crazy, like not sin. That's the goal. I don't know of any football team like the Cardinals is starting the season going, hey guys, we just want to win one game. How many know they're going, we want to win them all? The goal is to win them all. And that's the same with our walk with Christ, is to not sin. Now, he's going to help us with that. And then the last one is, he writes so they might have assurance of their salvation on the basis of Jesus. So I want us to go back to verse 3 where we ended, pick it up there, and begin to talk about that tonight. So let's read this verse together, found in the English Standard Version. That's which we have seen and heard, we proclaim to you, so that you too may have fellowship with us. And indeed, our fellowship is with the Father and his Son, Jesus Christ. We talked about, what does this word fellowship mean? It's the word koinonia. It's the act of sharing in an activity in an intimate group with active Christian community. It evokes the idea of communion and love and support and joining together. I love this quote from A.W. Tozer in Pursuit of God. He said this, has it ever occurred to you 100 pianos all tuned to the same fork are automatically tuned to one another? Think about that. Instead of trying to tune to one another, if we tune to the tuning fork, we'll be tuned into one another. And that's what this is saying. He's saying, I want you to have fellowship with God. And by having that fellowship with God, we'll have fellowship with one another because we're tuned into the same exact harmony. Isn't that a beautiful picture? This is what 1 John is describing in verse 3. He's saying, I want you to tune yourself up constantly to God. And when you do, you have fellowship with God and you have fellowship with one another. This is a powerful word, koinonia. And if we look down just 2 verses, there's a powerful word picture I want us to grasp tonight that John is trying to help us understand. What does it mean to live a koinonia life? And this is the verse in the Message translation. If we claim that we have experienced a shared life with him. If you have a place to take notes, write that word shared life. One of the things that's interesting about America is we're very independent. How many realize that? No one's going to tell me what to do. No one's going to tell me how to drive. No one's going to tell me how to park. I'm going to do it myself. And it's contrary to the way God has created us to live in community. Community is about where we share life, whereas America is about independent life. Thankfully, America's independence caused us to move from 13 colonies across the U.S. and fill in the whole U.S. But it's also the very struggle we have today when it comes to living a Christian life, because what do you mean? No one is sharing. I'm not sharing my life I'm not sharing details. I'm not sharing and we don't realize the Bible actually encourages us. What is a shared life? I want to point out 3 scriptures that kind of lead us down that pathway. The first is found in Romans 12, verse 10. In the modern English version, it says this: be devoted to one another with brotherly love. Say it with me, devoted. This word actually means pertaining to love for those closely related to one, particularly members of one's immediate family or in-group. Paul is a writer of Romans, and what he's saying is we're not just people, we're family. Be devoted like a family. I have some interesting stories about a family. I come from a large family of 6 siblings, 7 of us all together. Growing up, we would fight with one another, but if there's ever anyone that would fight one of us, we'd all become united against that one. They thought, well, they're fighting against each other. This is a great time, and didn't realize we have one code. We're family. You touch one of us, you touch all of us. And what we were disunited, all of a sudden we became united around that. Paul is using this example because he's trying to tell us that we're not individuals, we're a family that is joined together. And if you look at Paul's writing, he says something to Timothy. He says, Timothy, because Timothy struggled with what does a family mean? He said this: treat older men like fathers, older women like mothers, Christian brothers that are like you, like brothers, and women that are the same age as you, like sisters. He used the family relationship. And that's what this is really saying. He's letting us know that, hey, we have to also learn that we are a family that works together, loves together, fights together, and respects one another. The second verse is found in Romans 12:16, which also is about a shared life. And this is interesting. It gives us another layer to this shared life. First one is be devoted. Second one says, live in harmony with one another. I don't know about you, but have you ever played in an orchestra? Anybody? I remember junior high, that's what we all did. Whether I wanted to or not, my mom got my brother a trombone, I got a cornet because we couldn't afford a trumpet, so I got the little one. And then we went to junior high and we all played in concert band. And anybody remember when you walked into practice room, even before you performed, and you sat in that practice room, what was the first thing you did? Anybody? You tuned your instrument. First thing you did, before we play anything together, let's make sure we're all in tune with one another. What does that really mean? Because he says live in harmony. Harmony is about learning how to play that part with someone else. Each day, we'd tune our instrument. Didn't matter what it was like the day before, we tuned it up that day. And if we practiced in the morning and we had a performance at night, guess what we did before the performance? Tuned up our instrument. This seems like overkill, but the conductor knew if one instrument is out of tune, the whole beautiful piece won't sound beautiful anymore. And this is what the writer's trying to say. He's saying we need to learn to play a tune together with each other. That's what the writer of Romans is saying. He's saying tune up the areas of your life so that together you live in harmony. And I think that's important today because we all have opinions. How many reasons you all have opinions? If you don't realize that, if I just said to you, and I'm not going to say it to you because a fight would break out, who are you voting for? We all have our own opinions. How do you think the country should be run? We all have our opinions. But remember this, tuning yourself to someone else means it's not that important that my opinion becomes the dominant opinion. How can I listen to someone else's opinion? And that's what a shared life is, living in harmony. This word harmony, it means this, to think and form an opinion as set to harmony, to exercise the mind, to have an opinion of interest towards others. It's not have your own opinion, it's saying, how should I connect with this person who I realize, because I've talked with them a little bit, our opinions are different. There was an old song years ago, and it said, it doesn't matter what church you belong to, as long as you serve Christ, you're my brother or sister. And that's what this is, it's saying, a shared life is really, that's the most important thing. When you're by yourself, you focus on yourself. How many realize that? But a shared life is what we're called to live. And when you live a shared life, you begin to think this way. How are they going to approach this task? How do they want this task done? Living a shared life means you become mindful of everyone around you. How do you do that? Let me give you a key. It's called listening. I began to realize that if I listened to people, they'd open to me a brand new world that I'd never done. Now, I'm a sports guy. I like sports, but I wasn't raised in a place, I was in California, so NASCAR was not something that I enjoyed. So when someone started talking about NASCAR, I just tuned them out. Until I realized there was one guy and his passion was that. And so I had asked him, because he was into building engines and all. And I asked him, he talked for 25 minutes straight, and I realized, when I stopped thinking about my passions and I asked about his, we connected more than we ever did. Then the third scripture I want to encourage you about is living a shared life is found in Philippians 2, verse 4 in the New Living Translation. And this is Paul again writing, don't look out only for your own interests, but take an interest in others too. Wow. How many know this is one's hard to do, right? You start wanting to get interested in other people, but all of a sudden you find yourself talking about, you know what, that's what happened. Anybody, they're telling a great story and you go, the same thing happened. And you realize, wait, can I just listen and be interested in other people? Another word for a shared life, and this is what I want to get into tonight, really help you build this tonight, is the word friendship. A shared life is really a friendship. So what are the benefits of living a shared life according to God's word and according to our walk in faith? Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verses 9 and 10 has a beautiful passage that talks about the importance of friendship or a shared life. Two people are better off than one, for they can help each other what? Succeed. Why are two better than one? Better success rate. Then he goes on, if one person falls, the other can reach out and help. What's the second reason he shares here? And the word fall means to stumble. But someone who falls alone is in real trouble. So let's kind of identify real quickly tonight, before we get into this, the 7 benefits of friendship or a shared life. The first one is the last one, help in trouble. The first one is help in trouble. Why is friendship or a shared life important? Help in trouble. How many would like to be able to pick up the phone or text someone saying, man, I've got this situation, I don't know how to handle it. And you knew the person on the other end cared for you because they're living a shared life, and you knew they were going to give you wisdom to help you navigate it. Number 2, personal stability. Number 3 is spiritual help. Proverbs 27:9, it's not in there, but I'll read it to you. It says this, heartfelt counsel of a friend is as sweet as perfume and incense. Number 4, emotional encouragement. Friendship, a shared life, brings encouragement. Number 5, protection from loneliness and isolation. They've redefined the definition of loneliness, and I like it. It says it's not being alone, it's being with people who don't know you. You see, a shared life, you get to know one another. And we'll talk about how to do that tonight. But you begin to realize, I can get to know somebody in this room, and my life will be better for it. Then he said, number 5, protection from loneliness. Number 6, love and acceptance. Number 7, freedom of expression. A British publication once offered a prize, very substantial, for the best definition of friendship. Among the thousands of answers, here were some of the following. One who multiplies joy, divides grief, and who's honestly always there. One who understands our silence. A watch that beats true all the time and never runs down. But the winning definition I love is this. A friend is one who comes in when the whole world has gone out. Let me say that again. A friend is someone who comes in when the whole world has gone out. Why are we studying this? Because I want us to be that kind of community. I want us to find someone in this room that you know, if I text them, they're going to drop everything and pray for me, encourage me, give me wisdom. There's someone in this room who's going to help me realize I'm going to be better because I'm not in this alone. So the question then is okay, if a shared life is friendship, are there different levels or different kinds of friendship? I personally believe this is where a lot of our confusion and hurt comes today, because we don't understand there are levels of friendship and we get into trouble. Have you ever met that person who you met him for the first time and they shared their whole life with you in about 5 minutes? And you're like, whoa, I just want to know where the coffee is. That was way too much. And so again, I want to help us tonight to learn to develop these. The Old Testament has a scripture, and it uses 3 different words for the word friendship. So we know there are at least 3 levels, but I'm going to show you there's 4. It's found in Proverbs 88, verse 18. Loved ones, it's the word Ahab. The friend, Reah, you have put far away from me, and my acquaintances, Yada, into darkness. 3 different words, all with the same translation, friend. Jesus gives us an example of 4 levels of friendship. And they're found in his life. And that's what I want to look at tonight. What are the 4 levels of friendship that are found in the life of Jesus? Remember, a shared life doesn't necessarily mean sharing your life all at once. It means growing through levels of trust to a deeper place of sharing. Let me say that again. I want you to get this tonight. A shared life doesn't necessarily mean sharing all of your life at once, but growing, say with me, growing through levels of trust to deeper places of sharing. So the first level we see in Jesus' life is acquaintances. Say with me, acquaintances. Acquaintances are those people who pass through our lives. We meet them, walk with them for a moment, and then we move on. Someone you may know, but you truly don't know. Acquaintances are people whom we have surface level interactions with without any significant emotional involvement. Every friendship starts at this level. But it takes a great deal of effort and strong connection to move beyond the acquaintance zone. The Bible tells us this is found in 1 Corinthians 15:6. After this, Jesus appeared to more than 500 of his brothers at the same time, most of whom are still living, though some have fallen asleep. How many did he have? How many acquaintances did he have? 500. They say, they'll tell us, therapists and psychologists will tell us today, a person can have an average of 500 to 1,500 acquaintances. That's like, hey, how's it going? Do you know anything? Yeah, that's Bob. Do you know where he lives? Nope. You know his last name? Nope. But he's Bob. You've met him. You've walked maybe into the comedy night together and you've said hello to Bob across the room, but that's as far as it goes. And that's okay. We need those. How many realize we need those? Because it's out of that pool that we get the next level of friendships. You have to meet people in order to make friends. How many realize that? You know? Well, it's kind of like this story, and we've heard that joke. And we kind of look at it when it comes to friendship. It's a story of the guy, and he's on the roof, and the town is flooded, and he's on his roof waiting for help. And he prays to the Lord. He said, Lord, send help. And immediately a boat comes by, and they say, jump in. We'll take you to safety. And he goes, no, I'm waiting for help. And then a helicopter comes in across and says, climb up. We'll take you to safety. And finally he dies, and he gets to heaven. He gets mad at God and says, God, why didn't you send help? And he said, I sent you a boat and a helicopter, and you sent them away. Having friends is the same way. God puts us in situations to make new friends. And some of those friends may become more than that. Okay? As we grow through these levels of friendships, remember, it takes years to grow through these levels, okay? So, number 2, casual friends. These are people you see regularly in the normal course of living. We know them by their first and last name. Maybe we know some of their likes and dislikes or basic facts about them, like their major hometown. The connection is more tied to a shared activity than a strong personal bond. We might interact with these people on a regular basis because we share an environment or activity together. As we get to know each other, we might even start to chill with them before, during, or after that activity. These people have shared interests with us and overlap, causing us to connect, like being a regular at 45 plus. See how I snuck that in there? I want more friends. Well, be a regular. You'll get to know some more people. You'll hang out before, hang out after, and you'll get to know some people. And you'll learn a little about them. When we look at the life of Jesus, he had 72 of these. Luke 10:1, I don't know if I have it up there. Yeah, I do. Good. After this, the Lord appointed 72 others and sent them out 2 by 2 ahead of him, each to town and place where he was to go. Jesus had 72 of these. These are people you get to know a little bit better. After tonight, at the end, after our table discussion, we invite you to grab some pizza, hang out at a table, and get to know somebody. This is where we go from acquaintance to more of a casual friend. We get to listen. Oh, I didn't know you were a fan of the Cardinals. I didn't know there were any left. Oh, you're a fan of the Suns? Yes, I'm an original fan. Oh, wow, it's 2 of us in the room, you know? Whatever it is, you begin to know, oh, I didn't know you liked concert music. Oh, I didn't know you could country dance. That was a plug there for it. And you get to know a little bit more about them because why? You're hanging out. You're asking questions. You're listening. And you become more than an acquaintance. You start becoming a casual friend. And again, it takes a while for that. How many realize you can't force that? You may connect with some, others you may. Others you may not. But again, you begin to what? It's kind of like, I like to liken it like have you ever been to a chili cook-off? Anybody? I mean a real one where they have like 20 or 30 of them and you try them? I mean, you go down and you try each one. Oh, I like this one. Then you sit and you talk with the person. How'd you make it? What are you doing? You're building a friendship right there. What caused you to build it? You shared an activity. In this case, you shared a common taste and you liked it. Casual friends are the same way. I've met some of the greatest people in my life I would have never met without going to an activity together, because they're not people that I would have associated with because of who I am. And I've learned, wow, this is amazing. They've enriched my life because I've gone to an activity that was outside of my comfort zone and got to know them. So, go to an activity outside your comfort zone. Let me go to the next one. The next one is close friends. It takes about, and this is fact, 2 years to develop close friends. And these friends, we share similar values, ideals, and worldview. They know a lot about you, and you feel comfortable sharing with them about your life. Close friends provide comfort and consolation in times of loss and heartbreak and struggle. They understand your pain and offer emotional and practical support. And I have 3 of them there because it's divided into 3 different types. The first type is associate. Associate friends are people we may work with. Anybody worked with somebody for over 5 years? Got to be a friend with them because you worked with them? Anybody? A few of you. That's what associate would be. Anybody lived in a neighborhood for over 5 years and you got to know some of your neighbors and they're friends with them? You would have never made friends with them, but you're friends with them, close friends with them, because why? We were neighbors. And over time, we got to know each other and we got to spend time, and you go, wow. My family, where I grew up, there's a family that probably we wouldn't have been close to, but we were neighbors. Our family had 4 boys and 3 girls. Their family had all girls, a girl dog, a girl cat, and they were Catholic, so they kept going, kept trying, and they kept thinking we were Catholic too, and we said, no, we're not. And my mom and dad got to be friends with them because they shared a commonality of 7 kids. We wouldn't have been friends with them otherwise, but we lived in proximity with them for 12 years. That would be associate friends. So, how many have ever lived in a neighborhood for like 7, 8 years? You moved away and you remained friends with those people. Anybody? Okay? Those are still in your life. They're just not active. But you're still, you can pick up the phone and say, hey, remember when? And you're friends because why? You shared life together. The second type is mentors. Mentors would be a pastor or someone older in the faith than you. Doesn't mean older in age, older in the faith than you. Could be an older brother or an older sister. Could be a parent. But they're people in your life you go to when you need wisdom. My dad was one of those. Whenever I needed something, I knew I could pick up the phone, and I knew he'd give me great wisdom, and he wouldn't get upset if I didn't follow it. Because I didn't ask for him to tell me what to do. I asked him, what would you do in this situation? I want to hear your wisdom, which is going to make my life better. So that's mentors. And then the third one is personal. Say with me, personal. Personal friends are very important. These are the ones that you choose to develop a close relationship with. You spend time with personal friends, and it's a priority. You enjoy each other's company, and you make an effort to connect regularly, whether it's a meal or coffee or fun. On one occasion, Peppermint Patty was talking to Marcy, and she said, I like to read this book, Marcy, but I'm kind of afraid. I had a grandfather who didn't think much of reading. She continued to say, he always said that if you read too many books, your head would fall off. Marcy responded, you start with the first chapter and I'll hold your head. That's a personal friend. Someone who goes, oh, don't worry, you go ahead, I'm going to join you with that. Jesus had 12 disciples plus some other friends. We know of Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. So you have the capacity for about 12 to 30 of these because some of them are inactive. But this is, again, when I say that, that's our problem. I want you to understand tonight, some of our problem is we try and go straight from acquaintances to close friends, and we're going to get hurt. We're overextended because that other person isn't that with us. And we'll talk about that tonight, how to understand that. The fourth level is the top level, and that is called intimate friends. This level takes at least 3 years to develop. This level could be summed up in the Old Testament with Amos 3:3. It says this: can two walk together unless they are agreed? Let's go back. Oh, good. Let's go to the next, back up to that. Do we have that pyramid again? Yep, perfect. Thank you, guys. These friends are the people you're able to be your most authentic self with. These are friends you can pour your soul out, share your deepest feelings, your deepest hopes. These are the friends that run towards you when your enemies come at you, not away. Because they love you, these are the ones that will tell you the truth, even though it hurts. And there's 2 verses in the Bible we don't understand, and we apply them in the wrong place. These next 2 verses are only applied as intimate friends. And the first one is Proverbs 27:6. It says this: faithful are the wounds of the friends, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. What does it mean? A friend is able to tell you, you didn't treat that person very nice. That wasn't good. How many know that doesn't feel good on the inside, right? But you know, that's why it says faithful are the wounds. You know that person isn't leaving. Just because they saw you get ugly, they're not running. They're with you forever and for the long haul. And so you go, you know what? Thank you. I know I didn't want to hear that, but you're making me better because you're telling me the truth. That's what that verse means. Faithful are the wounds of a friend. It means you're telling me something I don't want to hear, which means what happens to my soul? I get a little bit wounded, right? Anybody had someone who was a good, intimate friend tell you what you didn't want to hear? My wife is that. She's amazing, but I worked a couple jobs, and she worked, and so finally we were back on the same page. We were working for a church, and we were able to go to coffee together. And she is the one who got me into Starbucks. She loves Starbucks, and so whenever I would go get my Starbucks, it was always I would just go in and, it's like a cold brew with cream, thank you. And that was it, and then pay them the money. That was my interaction with them. And then in my car and off to work. Well, when I went with her, I'd go cold brew with cream, give them the money. And after a little bit of time, like a couple of days, my wife said, you're scaring all my friends. I said, what do you mean? She said, you don't smile, and your size, you scare them. I said, why do I need to smile? I'm getting my coffee. That's their job. And then I began to realize, wait, isn't it my job to be nice in life? And so now I smile when I say cold brew with cream. Thank you. Because she made me better. She told me something I didn't want to hear. And you have friends like that. God has put them in your life. And then the second part, which I love. There is a friend that sticks closer than a brother. And we all want to say Jesus, and that's a good answer because Jesus is always the answer for everything. But this is talking about a real friend. This is talking about a person who goes, I'm going to stay there even if your family doesn't. I'm going to stay there because I've made a commitment in my heart to you. These are the only people in your life that see your highest point and your lowest point, and they still love you. And if you don't know this is true, Jesus had 3 of them. They were who? Peter, James, and John. What do you mean? They were the ones that saw him transform on the mount. And Peter goes, wow, let's just stay here and build a church because this is glorious. What I'm seeing you is really, you are the Christ. They also saw him in the Garden of Gethsemane when he was in anguish and he was crying out and his soul was overwhelmed. And it said he actually bled drops of blood. He was so anguished. Peter, James, and John saw that. Only those 3 saw his high point and his low point. Our capacity for these types of friends is 1 to 6. These categories that I've shared with you are not necessarily fixed or clear cut. Friendships are destined to ebb and flow. Sometimes we refer to people as our friends because we have a shared history with them. But we fail to realize the dynamics may have changed over time. And when they change, what happens is, and we don't recognize that, we still see us at another level and they have dropped. Let me help you with this, because this is where I see a lot of people pull back because they go, friends are not loyal. They don't realize maybe we were close friends. But through life, they pulled back and become a casual friend. And we're still trying to share hopes and dreams with them as a close friend, and we wonder why they're not making an effort to reciprocate. Why aren't they making an effort to spend time with me? We used to do this a couple years ago, and at that moment you have to realize, wait a second, let me go back to that chart. This friendship has changed. It was a close friendship, but now it's a casual friendship. Jesus had one of those guys. His name was Judas Iscariot. Paul had one of those guys. He named him. His name was Demas. He said, Demas has left us for the love of this present world. And Demas was one of those close friends. He said, but he's not anymore. And so I've got to readjust my commitment and my emotional connection and my soul, or I'm going to leave myself open to be hurt. I think that described a lot of us in the room. We get hurt, we get mad at God, and we get mad at each other, and we don't realize, I didn't recognize this person had begun to pull back. And when they did, I can't force them to be a friend they're not. I have to take them for what they are. That's huge wisdom. If you learn to take people for what they are, you allow yourself at least some sort of help. So here are some practical questions to ask yourself as you see the friendship changing. I'm going to give you 4 of them. I think I have them there. Are they there? 4 questions on your notes. Are they there? Practical questions, are they? No, they are not. I don't think I do. So let me give you 4 of them. Huh? So I think they're there. Let me give you, the first one is a friendship feeling one-sided? Is that on there? Okay, good. These are 4 questions which are different than this one. This is how to make friends. But 4 questions, let me quickly go over them. I put them on the notes because I want you to use this as a way to help yourself. Is a friendship feeling one-sided? I run into people all the time, they say, man, it seems like I'm always going to where they're at. I'm always driving to where they're at. We're always doing what they want to do. What is that telling you about your friendship? It's become one-sided. So you have to ask yourself, this isn't the way it used to be. It's changed. So let me adjust my heart and soul, because if I pull this back to a casual friend, that makes room for another close friend that God wants to bring my way. Because people would decide on their own. Number 2, do you feel that you're no longer being heard, understood, or prioritized? Every time you get together, they're telling you about their life. And after a while, you go, we just talk about you. And you're trying to get them to listen. You go, you can't, here's what I found out. You can't make people be what you want them to be. You can only go, okay, I appreciate your friendship. It's changed. I'm not going to throw it away, but we're now casual friends. And I'm okay with that, because if I do that, God will bring another close friend to replace that one I pulled back from. That's the beauty about God. Number 3, are your boundaries not being respected? Does your time spent together feel draining? I run into people all the time, and they go like this, I just feel so exhausted after meeting with my friend. And I said, maybe the friendship has changed. And that's why you're feeling drained, because you used to be close friends. It's reported that Howard Hughes, worth $4 billion, said this, I'll give it all for one good friend. All the levels of friendships are equally important, and they play a role in our lives, and they are part of a shared life. Do you understand that? Every one of these things we discussed tonight is living a shared life. God wants to develop all of them, and God wants to introduce new people to our lives. So how, and this is the last, go ahead there. How do we build new friendships? And that's what I want to end with tonight to help you with. The Bible says this, a man who has friends must himself be friendly. I don't know why I don't have any friends. Well, you sit in the corner and don't talk to anyone. Well, God will send them. No, he won't. I had to get out of my comfort zone. You have to realize, and I'll share this real quickly. When you grow up like me and you're bigger than everyone else in your class, you feel awkward and you feel self-aware. So I literally went through high school without talking at all to anyone until my brother called me on it. I'd walk through the hallways and I'm 6'5", and most of them are like shorter than that. So I walk through the hallways going like this, hey, hey, hey. I was so awkward, I felt like if I tried to put words together, I'd be like, blah, blah, blah. And they'd realize I was a phony, so I thought, this way, I'm cool. Hey, how's it going? I'd throw that in there every now and then, too. Hey, yeah, how's it going? And my brother came to me, he was 2 years older, and he said, hey, everyone thinks you're stuck up and you're mean. I'm like, I'm not that way. And he goes, because you won't talk to them. And I realized in order to make friends, I've got to be friendly. Now, does everyone know the difference between friendly and over-friendly? Come here, real quick, right here. Hi, I'm Randy. Guess what, man? I just got surgery on my back. You know what else? I got hemorrhoids. How many know that's not friendly? That's over-friendly. All right? I want you to get that. Because I think sometimes we think we're being friendly, and we're not friendly. We're over-friendly, and people are like pulling back going, whoa, this is way too much. So the next thing, be willing to diversify yourself. There are people, I am friends today, that love things I did not love that I now love. Now I always tell my wife, but when I was growing up before I met her, I would watch ESPN, Fox Sports, and ESPN2. Then I met her, and she has these shows like DIY, HGTV. I'm like, they're all funny. What is? And all of a sudden I found myself going, wow, I like this Curb Appeal. That's pretty good. House Hunters. I like it. International. Oh, I can go see. And I started liking things because why? She diversified my life. Your friends will diversify your life because they bring new things to your life that you wouldn't add. Number 3, you must be willing to open your life up at the appropriate levels. Write that, circle that or whatever, at the appropriate levels. That means when they say, how are you doing, and you're growing in that friendship, it requires a little bit more honesty. Well, I had a real, we do this all the time. Someone walks into church, we say, how are you doing? And what do they say? Good, how about you? But friends are be able to go, and I had a good friend, and this is what you do. No, really. And you get right in your face, and you go, how are you doing? And you realize, I got to tell him the truth. I got to tell him. He knows because he's my friend. Number 4, you must begin to give part of your soul to someone you trust. You will never be good friends until you give a little bit of that away. What does that mean? You can be hurt. This is the beauty of it. Friends make your life better. You reach higher levels. You could become more successful. But they're also the people that can hurt you. So you can either close off and go, I don't want to be hurt. But in doing so, you miss those beautiful things. Number 5, you must evaluate existing, we talked about this, and recognize maybe the friendship's changed. Number 6, you must be willing to take friendships where they want to settle as opposed to where you want them to go. And we talked about this as well. Let me close with this, and I think this will help you understand the power of friendship. There was a young man, and it was his first season with the Brooklyn Dodgers. He was in a world that was unlike his. He was the first black man to play Major League Baseball. His name was Jackie Robinson. Everywhere he went, they'd throw fastballs at his head. They'd try and spike him as they slid into base, and they yelled brutal racial comments from the opposing dugout and crowds. During one game in Boston, the taunts and racial slurs seemed so great that Jackie Robinson was visually shaken. In the middle of that, another Dodger, a guy from the South named Pee Wee Reese, called a timeout. He walked over from his position at shortstop to second base, put his arm around Jackie Robinson's shoulder, and stood there for what seemed like hours. The crowds quieted. The dugouts shut up. The gesture spoke so eloquently, it was saying, "This is my friend." Jackie Robinson said this, "That arm around my shoulder saved my career that day." Friends make a difference, so let's go about building them today. Amen?